Let's continue with our discussion of abundance by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. This is the fourth part of our interpretation. While abundance discusses issues specific to the United States, it also offers insights that can inspire us elsewhere. Today's theme is government capability, or what's often called state capacity. This is a concern shared both in the US and globally. Many people don't even realize that government capacity is something worth discussing, because they simply assume that the government has godlike power. Democrats advocate for big government. They make all sorts of demands of it: protection, equality, environmental protection, climate change coordination, as if government were omnipotent. Whatever you want, just get the government's attention, and it will deliver. Republicans advocate for small government. In their eyes, government often does harm and is rife with corruption. That's why figures like Elon Musk and Donald Trump are eager to drastically cut the number of federal employees, believing that the fewer the people in government, the more efficient it will be. Both sides focus on what government should or shouldn't do, yet neither side seriously considers whether the government is actually capable of doing anything at all. The reality is, the US government is steadily losing its ability to get things done. There's a story in the book that Republicans might find especially validating. In 2016, the city of Los Angeles overwhelmingly passed a proposal to raise $1.2 billion through a property tax increase. This seed money would go toward building 10,000 housing units for the homeless. The goal was to eliminate homelessness from LA's streets within 10 years. Residents willingly agreed to higher taxes to support the homeless. A noble gesture. And the $1.2 billion wasn't the only funding. It was expected to attract other sources like tax incentives, charitable donations, and state/local subsidies. But by 2024, 8 full years later, only 4,344 units had been built. The average cost per unit? A staggering $600,000. High cost, low efficiency. By contrast, in 2021, San Francisco completed a supportive housing project for the homeless. 145 units at an average cost of just $400,000 each, completed in only 3 years. Considering that San Francisco has higher housing costs than LA, and as we discussed in the last session, building there is notoriously slow. Why was this project both faster and cheaper? Because it was entirely funded with private money. No government funds involved. This isn't an isolated case. It's a pattern. When government money is involved, procedures become incredibly complex, approvals stall progress, and costs balloon. Private money? Projects are faster and cheaper. So does that mean Republicans are right? That government is bloated and corrupt and everything should be privatized? Not quite. Elon Musk and Donald Trump have tried to lay off large swaths of federal employees. But after several rounds of cuts, they've run into a wall. The truth is, federal agencies are not bloated. Since 1960, federal government spending has increased more than 5-fold, adjusted for inflation. But the number of civilian employees has remained around 2 million. There hasn't been a hiring spree. So what's left to cut? In fact, under constant Republican scrutiny, government departments are extremely cautious about overspending. Projects are outsourced to private contractors whenever possible, to the point of over-outsourcing. Take the example of California's high-speed rail system, planned in 2008. A special high-speed rail authority was created, with only 10 staff members. Even crucial budget projections were outsourced to a consulting firm. But that firm lacked the necessary expertise and grossly underestimated costs, projecting $33 billion, which was far too low. By contrast, BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit, uses mostly in-house government employees for its engineering work, and as a result, runs efficiently and has even come in under budget. Other studies have found that increasing staffing in state transportation departments reduces highway construction costs. Modern societies need governments to do a lot. Fewer people doesn't mean better results. So if the government isn't overstaffed, why is it so inefficient? In Chinese terms, too many mothers-in-law. People imagine the government as a unified, coherent entity that speaks with one voice. In reality, it's a collection of departments, each with its own demands. As the authors put it, government is a plural pretending to be singular. Each department has its own set of regulations. While the U.S. government generally promotes market freedom and avoids micromanaging private companies, the story changes once government money is involved. You must comply with all departmental rules. Want to build supportive housing for the homeless? Sure. But if you're using public funds, you must meet the following requirements. Construction must prioritize small businesses, defined as those with under $12 million in annual revenue, because the government supports small enterprises. But in construction, small firms often lack economies of scale, leading to inefficiency and higher costs. The local Arts Council must review your design for aesthetic quality. The Office for Disability Rights must ensure you've met all accessibility standards. Don't use modular construction, even though it's faster and cheaper, because labor unions will protest that it threatens local construction jobs. Workers must be paid 20 to 30% above market wages because government-funded projects can't be seen as exploiting labor. If your building is near a freeway, the planning department may require you to install a high-grade ventilation system. You might say, but these are homes for the homeless. Isn't it better to get people indoors, even if the air quality isn't perfect? Doesn't matter. Government-funded projects must meet all these standards. So everyone shows up to audit. The audits delay the timeline and add their own costs. One estimate suggests that a 9-month delay caused by compliance audits could raise per-unit costs by $100,000 due to rising material prices, interest costs, etc. Add in expensive building standards, high wages, and small contractor requirements, and your total cost skyrockets. The nature of government money is that every dollar comes with strings attached. And that makes sense. Nobody wants to see money misused. If you donate a large sum to your alma mater, you want it spent on students, not reimbursing faculty vacations. So, of course, you demand oversight. The government dreads scandals, underpaid workers, discrimination lawsuits, or buildings that harm residents' health. To prevent these, it sets strict conditions from the start. But here's the problem. Government funds aren't usually earmarked for one specific project. Multiple projects can apply. And one project might receive funds from dozens of sources, each with its own strings attached. Take California's high-speed rail project. Where should it have started? Logically, in San Francisco, Los Angeles, or at least a busy middle point, where usage would be high. But construction started in the Central Valley, which is sparsely populated. Why? Because the project was kick-started with federal funds from Obama's 2009 Recovery Act, which prioritized projects in poor areas with bad air quality. The Central Valley qualified. Another example. The Los Angeles Homeless Housing Project drew from 38 different funding sources. Each required separate audits, annually or biannually. Managing these audits alone incurred massive costs. As the project manager put it, if you just gave me $1 billion to spend however I wanted, it would have been a completely different story. But government doesn't hand out blank checks. In short, today's U.S. government operates under layers of old rules stacked on top of new ones, with countless departments, community groups, courts, and funders, all with veto power. Governments at peace for too long tend to fall into procedural inertia. They focus more and more on process and procedural justice, and less on outcomes. For a public servant, as long as the procedure is correct and the paperwork is complete, the final result doesn't matter. Bureaucrats don't fear project failure. They fear being blamed. Their goal isn't achievement, it's liability avoidance. So government legitimacy no longer comes from getting things done. It comes from following the right steps. So is this a dead end? Actually, the answer is straightforward. Every funding source has conditions. Every department requires compliance. Most of these rules come from good intentions. The people who set them aren't unreasonable. If you could gather everyone on site and explain, we're trying to build supportive housing quickly and affordably. Can we ease up on some of these requirements? They'd probably understand. But all that goodwill gets blocked by process. To fix it, local actors need discretion. And this can work. There are successful examples in the U.S. On June 11, 2023, a fuel tanker caught fire beneath an I-95 overpass in Philadelphia. The steel beams melted. I-95 carries 160,000 vehicles a day. It was a major traffic artery, completely shut down. Normally, rebuilding would take months. But Pennsylvania's Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro and Transportation Secretary Mike Carroll treated it as an emergency. They bypassed the bidding process and directly hired a trusted company. Labor rules weren't strictly followed. Crews worked overtime and even in the rain. It felt a bit like China's efficiency. The governor even installed a 24-hour live camera feed so the public could track progress. In just 12 days, the road reopened. The move won widespread praise. Many now think Shapiro should run for president. That's leadership. That's responsibility. If all you do is follow the rules, what's the point of being in charge? The balance between rules and discretion is a timeless topic in political philosophy. But the two are not inherently contradictory. It's all about knowing how to strike the right balance. Chinese culture has two key concepts: rules and adaptability. Rules are the foundations, systems and norms that shouldn't be easily changed. Without rules, a nation descends into chaos. If government behavior becomes unpredictable, society can't function. But rules aren't enough. You also need adaptability. This means assessing the real situation, judging the urgency, and making on-the-spot decisions. The saying urgency overrides protocol expresses this. In special circumstances, it's okay to bend the rules. In Mencius, there's a famous passage: men and women should not touch each other. But if your sister-in-law is drowning, do you save her? Mencius says that not saving her would make you a beast. Avoiding physical contact is the rule. Saving her is the adaptation. Rules exist for the sake of goodness. So, when a higher form of good is at stake, adaptation is not only justified but necessary. Being able to make that judgment, to adapt, is what power truly means. Discretion is what makes leadership meaningful. Those who rigidly stick to rules, refusing to adapt, are often just trying to avoid responsibility. In some sense, they've exited the moral stage. They hand their judgment over to procedures, their responsibility to systems. Only those who dare to adapt show real courage and leadership. That's it for today's content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.